What is up, everybody? It is me, Choice Mini Steve Thomas, coming at you just by myself tonight. So we are back. It is day 2 of my week of streaming every day. What are we working on? We're back to our Arch-Revenant. There we are. Look at that bad boy. Bad lady? Bad dude? Person? Tree elf. Cooler tree elf. Let's get into it. I hope everybody's having a good night tonight. If you are watching this later on, I hope you are having a good time whenever you end up watching this because, you know, that's the way things go. I took a little bit of a look at the model. I want to do a little bit more cleanup up around the top here. I got a couple of areas that I think need a little bit more attention, a little more TLC. Let's see if we can actually get that. There we go. There's just a couple of areas that are a little bit shoddy, so we're going to clean some of that stuff up. We're going to come in, start doing some highlighting on the bark itself, like on the armor / bark on this guy, and then we'll start getting into some of the other areas on the model. Most notably, I'm probably going to do some of the, I want to get the two birch parts, so our birch pole here and then the birch shield itself. We'll just get those started probably tonight, as well as some of the iconography and stuff on the model, and maybe the hair, because the hair goes underneath about a lot of things that we're going to be painting. So that's all we're going to start doing tonight. So let's get into it. maybe if we can keep this guy in focus. All right. Color that we started working on last night with the armor, we're using, this is Vallejo model color. Unfortunately, it's all chipped off there because it is. But this is mahogany, model air color, Vallejo model air mahogany. Yeah, boys. So, hope everybody's having a good day. I had a pretty good day. We roommate and I managed to get our backyard nice and shipshape now that we're, you know, just about to the end of COVID times, for us, definitely, as we come out of lockdown here in Canada, well, in Alberta in particular, where we are. We're coming out of our lockdowns here. I've got my second vaccine. I am now, I would say, fully recovered, but, you know, my shoulder's still a little sore. I gotta say, I've heard a variety of reports on, like, people being like, yeah, second shot, nothing at all. And I definitely, there is also plenty of stories of people being like, oh, that second shot, like, watch out for it. And I gotta say, as with all things where I go in for, like, some sort of, like, minor medical procedure and somebody's like, oh yeah, no big deal. Yeah, it ends up being a big deal for me. It's strange, but this has happened, like, this is a pattern of my life, you know, like, minor medical procedure shouldn't be a big deal. Everything's gonna be fine. Like, don't worry about it. And then minor medical procedure meets me. Yeah, it's always an adventure, at least for me. I wish it were less of an adventure, if I'm honest, but you know, that's fine. You know, I always seem to have weird recovery times and or bad recovery times. I guess you could call it that. Call it like it is. Bad recovery times. But yeah, that's fine. You know what? Even as rough of like 48 hours of flu-like symptoms of influenza-like symptoms or COVID mild symptoms goes, still 1,000 times better than drowning in my own lungs. So still better than COVID. Yeah, that should be everybody's mantra about getting vaccine number 2. If you're even a little bit worried about it, you know what? Getting the vaccine, still better than getting COVID. Still better than getting COVID. And trust me, I was unimpressed with the whole having to get a second shot. I'm not a huge fan of getting shots. I do it on a semi-regular basis. Although for the last couple of years, I actually guess I haven't gotten as many shots as I used to. Because I used to donate blood every 52 days like clockwork, and the last couple of years I've been pretty slack about that. Not for any particular reason, I just haven't been donating blood as often as I can. I mean, it also used to be just a tradition with my friends. We used to go donate blood and then get real drunk because it was cheap and fun and easy. Nothing like being, in your 20s and being like, hey, if we donate blood, we can get drunk cheaper. And that being enough to go and do the right thing, right? Sometimes it is just that easy. Sometimes it doesn't require literally anything other than, I can save money and lives. I'm always a little shocked that, like, that isn't a thing that comes up more often in, like, listen, Canadian Blood Services, if you're requiring new ideas for how to make donating blood sexy, just approach all the 18-year-olds in Canada and remind them that it is cheaper and easier to get drunk if you have donated blood within the last 6 hours. Now, I know, Canadian Blood Services, somewhere out there is a person who is going to watch this at some point in time and be like, oh, don't tell them that. That's bad. We all already knew. Everyone was aware that you could get drunk cheap after donating blood. That's why we were there. Wasn't it the goodness of our hearts? Cheap drinking. All right, how are we doing there? That's looking much better. So maybe one more coat just up in this upper area, and then I'm going to start doing some of the color modulation up through those top branches. So this guy, this Arch-Revenant, we talked about this a little bit on the stream yesterday. This Arch-Revenant is going to be matching my old army of Sylvaneth. So there you go. There's one of them. I've got soldiers and stuff around too, but you guys can see what's going on with him. The big things that I like about this Arch-Revenant, or about my Spirit of Durthu here, I do like the yellow-green glow that we've got coming out of, the markings and whatnot. Boy, this guy is dusty. We are mimicking some of the patterns that we see on here. So we are going with, under the skin areas. We're going to be doing similar, a little more purple, I guess, in ours. But I'm going to also continue to knock that back with some black ink on ours that we're working on. The skin here, or the armor on this guy, was a combination of mahogany and old wood. And I was using old wood in a lot of places just to lighten up some of the branches. I like this. The thing with the Arch-Revenant that I'm going to do that's a little bit different is I am going to be incorporating actually more of that like old green growth. Not like a dark green, but we're going to be incorporating scale color fall green into this color. There we go. You can see it there. Scale color 48 fall green. We're going to be incorporating a little bit more of that into some of this color. I'm also going to be using that color that I used on the inside of the shield. So on our wicker there, we're going to be using some of that to help with highlighting, as it's a close approximation to old wood. Or that's what I was mixing for. It's a little bit more yellow than old wood was. Old wood is very close. Its closest approximation in in scale color is probably birch, if we're going for one. But this is, almost 3 years later that I'm painting this guy than the last time I painted, so I just want a little bit more interest in this model than what I had in my old model on that old Spirit of Durthu. And at one point in time I was like, I wonder if I can use these bits of train set pieces. Like I had foliage from, I used to do model trains. I'm actually in the middle of finishing up model train stuff for my brother, actually. He's given me more of his terrain to, I say terrain, it's a train set that I'm working on for him. Just getting that stuff fully kitted out as far as terrain goes, just giving it, the business. In the case of this guy, though, we are also going to be working on his base this week. I might work on some of this tomorrow. I'm going to do probably an EU-friendly time for this stream. I'm thinking, I don't know, probably 10:30, 11 o'clock a.m. tomorrow I'll be streaming again. I guess 10:30, 11 o'clock my time, which means some other time, depending on what time zone you're in. I am here in the Mountain Time Zone in Canada. Yes, that famous time zone that all like 7 people live in. Okay, it's not a very popular time zone compared to like Pacific, Eastern, Central even. Actually, I don't. Is Chicago Central or is yeah, Chicago Central. Never mind. I was trying to remember whether Chicago was Central or on Eastern time, but not a huge population in our time zone. We get to share it with Denver, so you know, when your time zone's greatest feature is Denver, Colorado, you know that there's not a huge population in your time zone. Nothing against Denver. Well, okay, one thing against Denver, that airport sucks. Still not a fan of the Denver airport. Have to spend far too much time in the Denver airport transferring onto United flights back to Canada. You never land at the same place that you're going to be taking off from. Everybody knows how that is. You know, I used to travel quite a bit with work, and I do miss some of the international travel. But some of it I definitely don't miss. At least not as much as I thought I would. The last year, COVID has taught me that mostly I don't like travel. Mostly I like painting minis. Thanks, COVID. Okay, I may have already known that before COVID, but like, you know, nothing makes something more apparent than like getting to do it a whole bunch, so let's start working on our highlight process here. So with this wood, I want to make it so that the areas facing up into the camera here are the ones that are catching the most light. But I also don't want to super desaturate that really nice tone that we get out of the mahogany paint. So it's sort of a balancing act that I'm going to go through here. I am going to over brighten this, and then I will come back and build some more of that nice warm tone back into the model. Again, I'm doing this with a giant number 2 brush right now because I am going to refine these shapes at several points in time. So like it only makes sense that we would sort of do that sort of thing. And I'm not only going to be picking off places that catch light. I am going to be picking off edges because I want to make this stuff, this plate, this armor, this wood, I want to make it seem like it is shiny and oily. I'm going for sort of a... There are plenty of woods on the planet that are naturally oily woods. Teak comes to mind. There are several others that I'm sure I'm forgetting right now. But all of those woods are naturally, like the fibers themselves, the pores of the wood are naturally oily. I really want to replicate that to a certain degree in our hero here, in our Arch-Revenant. Making him look super shiny is something that I felt I wanted to do. So we will be going back and forth, just building up nice high highlights, and I'm using this sort of desaturated old woodsy color. And then what I did when I was doing this on like Durthu or any of the like I have Revenants, well, yeah, I actually do have Revenants, but I have like, you know, just regular old Dryads too. And we did the same thing. I just spent a lot of time building up that color in highlights, less time obviously on the just, you know, regular old Dryads, but like I spent time building up these highlight colors in a desaturated color and then coming back with the mahogany again and just sort of, not necessarily an all over wash, but a nice wash that really helped to define a lot of the shapes. Now, sort of have an advantage on this to begin with this paint scheme, because there we go. I do have an advantage with this paint scheme doing this because of the finish on, or how Vallejo Model Air applies. It tends to be very thin. It's an airbrush paint. It applies thin. It applies fairly glossy. well, not glossy, but like satin. You can, you should be able to see that on camera. It feels like it's coming across on camera. If it isn't, that's just the way it is, I guess. But it is, in itself, it is fairly glossy. So it tends to run into its own corners. Like it tends to pool pretty readily on its own. So to work with that isn't so bad. Like it's pretty great when you want to come back in and say make sort of come back over top of highlights and really integrate them into the wood as a whole, or into, in this case, wood, but into the. And I don't know if that works with every version of Vallejo Model Air, but it certainly does with this one. So that's, you know, this is a paint job that is born out of the mind-numbing experience of doing it on several, I think I want to say like 40 dryads and the Spirit of Durthu and a Branch Witch and, you know, X, Y, and Z, right? It was a full starter set, like, or a full start collecting box that I painted. And I think I did it in about a week or so. I don't know. Fairly short turnaround on that. Because I was having fun. And back in ye olde days, I was able to put at least that much time in a week into this sort of thing. So again, I'm picking out sharp edges. I am coming back to places that I have already hit with the highlight and just hitting them again on areas where either I feel like it should. I am going to do little bits of like uneven highlights. I like the visual interest that is created by not being absolutely smooth with everything. So places where the wood seems like it would be checked, or that it is interrupted in an unnatural means. So like around these little checks that come off of this pattern, design, whatever. I'm just going to give it a little more texture than I would otherwise, but in nice smooth areas like this nice flowing area on the thigh here, just going to be nice and smooth with my application. Because again, I want it to feel oily, naturally oily and smooth, but at the same time, I also want it to feel, I don't know, what am I trying to go with as far as feeling? I want the wood to feel woodsy, so there is still some texture to it, but I do also want it to feel, in the areas where it is smooth wood, I want it to feel smooth. There are certain areas that feel something like they are broken to me. And right now, that needs to dry out a little bit more, but you guys can sort of see what I'm doing there. Now, when we get to, when we get further up into these branches, you'll notice I'm not doing as much right now to highlight those areas. We will get to those areas in a bit. Those areas are going to be a different sort of highlighting that we get to. Not for, well, the reason is I want to modulate them towards what looks like growth. So new growth or current season growth, even towards the end of the fall on trees. I hope that you have trees nearby that you can reference if you want to do Sylvaneth, especially cool trees nearby. But out here in the prairies, because I live in the prairies, new growth or this year's growth on trees tends to stay green even into the fall of its first year. It doesn't typically start to turn into like old growth or how should I put this? Current growth? Like it doesn't look like last year's growth until the start of the next year. Like it doesn't change that way partway through the year. It doesn't really change until the spring and or summer of the next year is when it sort of loses its sort of greenness and turns into more or less just regular tree looking tree part. Boy, I wish I had any sort of like idea how to talk about plants. Uh, this is the love and life of interpreting nature into mini painting and being like, well, okay, the ends of branches are even in fall are kind of green, and I want to capture that into the like design I'm putting on this dude. So feature not flaw. I'm gonna do it. Okay. And rather than going to the full yellow, I'm just into our highlight color here. I'm mixing a little bit of scale color birch. And again, in the areas that I want it to really shine brightly. Because again, I want this to look kind of like an oily wood, like it is. It has these brighter highlights, like it is tenderly lived. I'm just bringing out these maximum highlights. First with birch, or first with a mixture with birch, and then I'll probably just straight up birch a little bit of this stuff just to really, really draw that highlight quite high on the areas that I think are catching the most light. This is the love and joy of acrylic paint, is it always goes on quite bright. Then it dulls down. You see what you're actually left with after a minute or two. And you can kind of adjust, keep going with in the direction that you feel is being well served. For those of you asking, where is your better half tonight? Where is Adam? Adam gets the nights off. I am off this week, so I am not working my day job this week. So I decided, hey, why not spend a little bit more time streaming? Because I'm going to paint today anyway. I may as well see if anybody else wants to hang out while we do it. So here we are, continuing to work up. Now I'm straight. Now I'm into just straight birch. Again, just into the middle of what we've already been working up as far as highlights go. Just tiny little glints of very, very bright colors. Again, this is to sort of give the impression of a polished or oily texture to the wood. And we'll work the other way too now. So now that we've kind of got this set up, now that this is sort of the expectation on this stuff, we're going to come back now once we've got this all taken care of. And I'm going to do less and less of this sort of bright birch color the further down the model we get. I might put a little bit here. You'll notice that I didn't do as much to work up these highlights. Very little dots as we get further and further down, because we do want a gradient from top to bottom of the model, right? So if we take a look at this model, from the very top of the model, from the very tip down to the bottom, we want more light or lighter colors or a lighter representation to the top, forming a gradient as we get down to our base, which just that way we're drawing more and more interest to these eyes, and we are going to be doing cool things with the eyes. So of course we want a lot of interest to land in that facial area. We're going to be working hard to make sure that we get lots of interest in that facial area. Doing a truly odd gradient in that area is going to help to establish drama, because we are doing our purple to yellow gradient. So this is what I am deeming Twilight the gradient. Others might have other names for it, but I am doing sort of a twilight gradient with that area. So both using fall and twilight as sort of our inspirations color-wise on this model. And right now I am just, as I said, or as I was mentioning before, I'm going to use our midtones. So this is Vallejo Model Color Mahogany. I'm using our midtone to reintegrate these tones into the model. I am not done. I will go back again after we have applied this and it has dried slightly. And we will reintegrate these tones or re-highlight these tones. Because this is a huge feature of this model, right? Like, this is probably the largest part of the model. Is this skin, or is this bark armor feature? You know, just like a Space Marine, the biggest part of a Space Marine is the armor on the Space Marine. So we spend extra time making Space Marine armor look cool. In this case, the biggest feature of this model is, without a doubt, the fact that he is a tree revenant. And although we are going to be putting a lot of detail into the mask to draw attention to the face, even though we are going to be spending a lot of time bringing attention to the symbols on his that are carved into him, because that really defines him as Sylvaneth, her, it. We are still going to be spending a good deal of our time working not just those volumes, not just those shapes, but also the colors in this area so that it really is interesting, right? We want this to be interesting, not just in shape and form, but also in, you know, like color information and texture and all the rest of it. So you can see with just, I've been, for the last couple of seconds at least, re-establishing some shadows. Every time we put on mid-tone, it pays dividends to go back, redo shadows, make sure that our shadows are nice and deep in the places where they should be nice and deep. Making sure that our, excuse me, making sure that our, not just our shadows are nice and deep, but that our highlights, so we'll do one round of shadow pass here, we'll come back and we'll do a round of highlight pass here. We'll just go back and forth because that's how we get cool looking models. Time, effort. You know, there's no real shortcuts to this stuff. And really, you don't have to do this with every model. This is a hero. Not only is it a hero, this is one of those like models that I really wanted to paint. So I'm going to paint him to kind of hit him, her. I always refer to models as him, even when they are like clearly hers. I don't know if that's just a weird thing I do or if everybody genders the thing they're painting. I'm not certain it's necessary. I feel a little bad because it's clearly her. Well, I honestly, I guess I can't really say that. I don't know. It's got boobs. Not sure how that qualifies it. I'm not sure that plastic knows it has a gender or cares about the construction of gender. Regardless, it is modeled female. I guess I could call it her as a model. That would probably make sense, but since when are we about making sense? I'm going to continue dropping shadows into the areas that I want more shadowed. Now, again, the shadow that I'm using here is a combination of mahogany. So that same Vallejo Model Air Mahogany, and I'm also integrating into it Vallejo Game Color or Vallejo Game Ink black. It's just black ink. Now the reason why I'm using black ink on this in combination with mahogany instead of doing something like smoke, which we used some smoke yesterday on the inside of the shield, just I want to keep that. I want to keep the mid-tone that we've established in other parts of the model with that, but I also wanted something, just the richness and warmth of mahogany, of the mahogany color is something that I really appreciate. So I am going to use that lots. Now you're probably thinking to yourself as I paint this knee, aren't you going to need to paint that a really bright color at some point in the very nearest future? And the answer is yes. I mean, like, yeah, yes, I definitely am. the reason why I dropped the black ink into it is so that I can make the light parts later. Because the light parts really... Okay, well, we'll talk about it when we get there. Yes, I know I'm dropping black ink into a deep crevice that I am at some point in time going to want to be very white. I'm aware. It's because I want the sides of it to be very, very dark. It's fine. We will get there. We will all get there together. Or at very least, I will get there. So again, just trying to beef up our shadows. Why am I using a tiny brush if I'm beefing shadows? Excellent question. I don't have an answer right now. I could say something technique controlling where paint goes, but like these shadows are still pretty beefy. Like they're still kind of... I'm still being pretty generous with where I am placing them, so... Not certain. It's the brush I have in my hand. It's probably not a good choice. Now that I've talked to myself through it a bunch of times, I am swapping back to my number two. Number two? Yeah, number two. Ooh, you know what's not playing right now? Our music. Let's get that going again. So, continuing to work shadows just across the whole model. Depth and separation in some areas. I'm also looking to... There are some parts of this model that need to disappear pretty significantly. Now, there are also parts of this model that are going to end up deep underneath of wings and stuff. Our little friend... The wings are an entirely separate creature from the regular tree revenant. There we go. So they're like their own bug thing, and our bug friend here is gonna get like he's gonna get his own colors as far as body goes, but so parts of this model do go well underneath of, if you can imagine. There's lots of this back part that goes well underneath of where those wings are. Not super worried about getting highlights on them, but I do need to get the shadows on them. I really want to keep the directional light of our highlights pointing properly, so they are going to be coming in from this way. I'm not so worried about highlights in the back of this guy, because I know much of that backpack is, like, the wings and backpack are going to cover so much of that part of the model that I'm not worried. Not worried. Okay. Let's do one more pass on our highlights. So again, just taking some of that mixture, so that is golden skin, Teneri yellow, and birch, that I'm using it as an approximation of Vallejo model color old wood, or sorry, Panzer Ace's old wood. It's not even model color old wood. It is. I can't even get Panzer Aces in my part of the world right now. I'm pretty sure. I think it's gone entirely, which is a little sad, but I mean, there are plenty of guys who are out there painting painting old military models and whatnot, but like I happen to know that they are in a price sensitive group now. They are in a bracket that considers themselves to be very, very price sensitive, and talking to the local shop owners and stuff who used to stock that stuff for those guys, they ordered all off of Amazon. Well, tell it to their faces, just straight up out loud. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I can't blame somebody for saying like, hey, you're more expensive than me buying this on Prime, but like, Also, those dudes are not as price sensitive as they seem to think they are, but that's fine. It's fine. I know who they are. Not all of them, but I mean, I hung out in model shops and hobby shops my entire life. They're not nearly as price sensitive as they like to pretend that they are. But it's not on me to call them out for that sort of behavior, because now when they go to the model store and are like, well, why don't you guys carry the type of paint that I like? And everyone's like, because you haven't bought that paint in years, and when you do, you complain that it's more expensive than buying it on Amazon, dude. So we stopped carrying it because you guys weren't sustaining me stocking it for you. Like, I don't know why you think that this wouldn't happen. Shocked Pikachu face. Not that there were that many colors in Panzer Aces that I actually remember buying. Old Wood was probably the only one that, like, Old Wood, even like English Uniform and stuff like that, like, all those colors I started being able to get in just regular bottle colors, so wasn't that much left that I really needed to, like, buy out of the Panzer Aces series, so. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know if Panzer Aces is still on sale in North America. I know it's still a line, but it seems to me that everybody, at least everybody in my local area here in Western Canada, seems to be, with Vallejo especially, switching over to Mecha, which is not a line of paints that I have much experience or enthusiasm for. Vallejo Mecha color is, I mean, it looks cool if you want to paint lots of, if you're into, like, Mecha, if you're into, you know, Gundam and related series, seems to be cool for that stuff, I guess, but, like, a lot of neons, a lot of very, very bold colors, and that's not how I tend to paint. I mean, when it calls for it, absolutely. Let's break out, you know. Let's get pink up in here. But when it's unnecessary, say if you were, like, painting one of these dudes, yeah, less necessary. Okay. I'm now moving into a combination of yellow and a little bit of birch. Again, I don't want to get super yellowy with these highlights because I like how much richness and red we get from our midtones. So again, as much as the yellow keeps some nice saturation as far as like hue goes, I'm really just looking right now for mostly lumosity. Just trying to keep lumosity up on all of these little bits as we paint them in. Again, looking for an oily sort of wood, a polished-y sort of wood on this stuff. Healthy looking wood. It's really healthy. All right. So I'm gonna leave most of the highlighting on the lower part of the body and the chest and stuff like that. I'm not going to get nearly this far. I am going to give us a couple of highlights just across this foot that is forward here, just to help define the shape a little bit, but I am going to be pretty controlled with this stuff. We're not going to get anywhere near as bright as what we did on the tops, like up on that chest area or those branches around the head. But I am going to come through and just pick out little bits that I feel really could use. Just some extra touches. Some extra je ne sais quoi. That's not true, I know exactly quoi, but like, you know, just to add that little extra juice to it, the little extra life and sparkle. Again, not getting crazy with this stuff, but I do want it to be, where we are putting highlights down here, I do want it to be nice and sharp and bright. But we are keeping them small and focused, just mostly so that we can pick out little areas, little glints of highlight to, again, articulate the idea that this is nice glossy wood that we are looking at. Areas where I've gotten a little aggressive with highlights are just going to come in with our mid-tones. And again, because this is an airbrush color, this is Vallejo Model Air Mahogany, it will retreat on its own, of its own volition, into the recesses for the most part. So where I've been putting, you know, if I've gotten a little carried away with a swath of highlight, like say on the underside of this knee here, it's going to automatically run into the recesses unless I'm pretty careful about placing it, in which case I really need to actually put the time in to place it appropriately. And by place it, I mean I'm just going over it a couple times. And making sure that my brush strokes are stopping where I want the most paint to accumulate. So one of the early things that I learned in brush control, and that most painters should learn in brush control, is where you are stopping your stroke.
Said, can I go ahead and appreciate the instructive commentary in an empty stream? How's it going?
Hey, eat your face. Yeah, we're empty today. I don't even have a co-host today, man. You know, I like to just make commentary. I'm not going to sit here by myself. I'm going to talk through, if nothing else, I'm going to talk through the process to myself out loud so that I'm at least rationalizing the process, man. Been a while since I've seen you in the stream, man. It's nice to have you hanging out with me tonight. But we are working on our Arch-Revenant tonight. Arch-Revenant, listen. Do you know? Does anyone? I'm certain somebody does. I am absolutely positive there is somebody who knows way more about lore than me that is going to get it right, and B, I have a feeling that there is somebody in GW who has very definite opinions on whether it is Arch-Revenant or Arch-Revenant. Also, and I will mention this to the guys who watch these ones later on YouTube. Thanks for watching these later on YouTube. I do, so everything that comes up on Twitch we do post also to our YouTube channel. We are also simultaneously streaming it to YouTube, but like YouTube gets me like one live viewer and then like 50 people who watch the video later. So I appreciate people no matter how they're watching the video, whether they're watching it live, whether they're watching it later. How are you doing tonight, Eat Your Face? So again, just coming back, doing more to reinforce that shadow, just...
Eat your face. Said good, watching the cup finals.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I probably could have got into it if Montreal had made it, but I have a real hard time watching hockey now. I don't know. I sort of fell out of love in like the I want to say mid-2000s? No, it was like the early 2010s. Second lockout stage. That would have been mid-2000s, but there we go. Well, I hope the cup finals are going okay. I don't even remember for certain who's playing. exposing my ignorance here, but
E. Jervis said Montreal and Tampa.
oh my god, it is Montreal. Wait a minute. Well, we can't be that far into the cup finals yet because I haven't heard about Montreal lighting itself on fire yet, so. And I don't mean that derogatorily. I was a Habs fan during the 93 Cup run, and then I switched to being a Nordique fan until they moved to Colorado. Trust me, there's a whole, like, I loved the NHL when I was a kid. I don't know. As I got older, I just sort of, I don't know if I left it behind or it left me behind. I don't know. It must have been when I stopped buying EA Sports games, whenever that was. So I want to say like 2010, probably. When I started having to do online matches to get Ultimate Team, whenever that happened, that was when it, I think that EA kind of lost me, and then I was no longer a big fan of the NHL, so. Happy we got the Jets back, but like, and I have been to a Jets game in MTS, but like, if I was a fan of any Canadian team, I guess it would probably be the Jets, even though I live in Calgary. Listen, man, I lived in Calgary through the worst years of the Calgary Flames. I became a conscious, like, being after we had won the cup. Like, I was 4 during the 89 Cup run. Yeah, I was 4 during the 89 Cup run, so I didn't get to see those days. I got to see the days where all of the people who were really famous for the Cup run were leaving town. You know, we were trading Dougie Gilmour to the Maple Leafs, Nieuwendyk, McGinnis, Mike Vernon. Basically, everybody left in the next like 3 years, and then they tried to get us excited about like Pavel Bure's younger brother. And like, I can tell you, man, it was a disappointing time to be a homer in Calgary. So, not sure why my white balance.
Said I'm a Blue Jackets fan, so we've had some bad years.
Yeah, you guys actually had like a surprisingly similar run to what we did. There was, what, until you guys had Ken Hitchcock get you guys into the cup run in what, I want to say 09. I could be wrong about that. Right near Rick Nash's last few years in the NHL. There was some pretty dark times that happened leading up to that and post that, I think. But again, I haven't paid as much. I say I haven't paid as much attention to the NHL, and yet I can still rattle off pretty much like 30 years worth of NHL history at any point in time. Anyway, man, what do you think? How are we doing on this Arch-Revenant? I'm liking where we're at. I think that's a decent space. I'm gonna start working on the tops of these branches now. This is where I said, again, I'm gonna start integrating the fall green color into it. I know mahogany's an old growth wood and it doesn't technically grow fast enough for this. Whatever. My rationale for a paint job aside, I just want to add some green into this model because I want to add that sort of motion up through that.
Said rule of cool.
Absolutely, rule of cool on this one. So I just want to add some motion into the model and do some draws. Draw the eye across the composition so that it is, you know, we are getting this like big swoopy gesture that's already there on this part of the model. We'll work on how to integrate the wings into that like big sweep that's sort of happening. It's sort of happening in this area, in this direction. So to add some motion, we're not just going to add highlights, we're going to add color changes that draw your eye across the motion. So here we go. I'm going to start lightening our base or our mid-tone. This is, again, so we're using scale color fall green in combination with our mid-tone, which is mahogany, Vallejo Model Air Mahogany. And this is how we're going to lighten up the ends of these branches. So I'm going to be fairly generous with these first couple of coats. just modulating this color slightly. And anywhere where I see that there is like new growth parts or things that I think of as new growth on this, I'm just gonna put it all over that. Now we're probably gonna echo a little bit of this like same fall green color into the bottom of the cloak here, just again to make that whole circle part work. And I'm contemplating it for our horns. Not that it's gonna be like pure fall green or anything, but we are going to integrate that probably into the birch in the rest of the model too. We'll see. We will all see as we get closer how exactly I plan to integrate both this green tone into our fall colors, into our other fall colors here as we do the rest of this model. So yeah. Can't forget the backside, even though this viewing angle is going to be basically impossible once we've got the wings on. We're just going to make sure that we're covering our bases and that it doesn't look that different from the front side. And that we are getting this sort of nice transition up along here too, because even though we've got big old wings that are going back there, they mostly block out this back area. They aren't going to block out so much some of the other areas of the model, so we'll just make sure we got it all covered, because that's what you do. Now, if I was just doing this for tabletop or just for funsies, I might not put as much effort into hitting that area. No, I definitely wouldn't. But if this wouldn't be the color scheme or paint job that I would choose for the tabletop quality version of this model either. So there's a lot of finicky stuff that goes into this period. So just down here on this one underneath the shield, I'm just gonna hit it real briefly. I know that seems weird, but I am just going to hit that. Make sure that it's got the same look of this newer growth. This green color into our mid-tone. We'll probably never get to... we might get to straight fall green on the leaves, but on the model itself, like on the wood, I don't think so. But we will continue this modulation across the model. I'm gonna grab the blow dryer here in a second just so that I can speed up this part of the process. Man, I love hair dryers for exactly this reason. 2 seconds here, guys. All right, back, another layer. This time I'm gonna bring in less of our mid-tone into it. So we are closer to that fall green color. We're gonna just start a little bit higher up the branches. Again, just covering quickly here on this stuff. Man, I cannot wait. Middle of this month, I am supposed to be getting a new lens for this camera. I might actually just wait till the end of the month and buy the camera body and lens at the same time. I mean, the new body just slightly faster with the autofocus. And by slightly faster, I mean significantly faster with the autofocus. And we're getting a camera with a little bit deeper, a lens with a much deeper depth of field than this one. I'm all the way out at f/22 on this, and just because of how I have to have the zoom set and all the rest of it so that we can see it. Definitely struggling with equipment and making sure that everything stays visible. That is a challenge. So just swapping equipment, making sure that we can actually see the model, because you know, I'd like to be able to share the work as we're doing it. So the nice thing that you guys can see, or you should be able to see on stream, is even though we're adding a very, very bright green. Like, you guys should be able to see it on the palette there. Maybe we can't actually see it on the palette. There we go. We're using a very, very bright yellow-green, mixing it into that mahogany just because the actual pigmentation of that mahogany is so red. We're still getting a very nice brown. Like, we're still getting like a nice orangey brown out of the deal, so it's like I've used these colors together before in mixture to get this. More blow drying. Going on mute, because it is loud. Man, I love blow dryer. Some say I love lamp, but man, blow dryer is where it's at. Loud noises. I don't even know. I'm sure that movie is no longer a relevant part of the zeitgeist, but man, when I was a kid. No, sorry, not when I was a kid. When I was a young adult? I think that movie came out and I was probably already like 18 years old. But anyway. Anchorman 2 definitely had his more than fair share of time in the sun. That and, oh boy, what was the one? Will Ferrell stars in it. They make their own fraternity. Old School. There we go. Old School. Definitely had their days in the sun, man. Definitely had their days in the sun. Lots of quoting of that stuff. Also The Simpsons. Which I hear is not a thing that the kids do these days. And to that I say... Doe? I don't know. I'm not going to take away what other people love. Love what you love. If you don't love The Simpsons, I mean, you're objectively wrong, but like, I get it. I understand. I hear you. It's fine. Just continue to be old. All right. Let's go even greener. Let's go more green, more yellow in there. Let's get aggressive about it now. Let's be aggressive about it now.
Said the first couple seasons of The Simpsons are incredible.
There is definitely a sweet spot of The Simpsons. The first two seasons, post being on the, I want to say Mary Tyler Moore show. I believe it was the Mary Tyler Moore show. The mid 80s seasons. Well, late 80s seasons, I guess. Hit and miss. The animation style is terrifying. Objectively so. My nieces are both afraid of early seasons of The Simpsons, as they should be. I mean, they're also toddlers. So, and before you ask, why are toddlers watching The Simpsons? The answer is, of course, Disney+. But neither here nor there. But season 3 from the animation style, like the animation shift at the end of 2 to 3, all the way until Principal and the Pauper, which is the one where Seymour Skinner isn't Seymour Skinner, and then everybody decides at the end of the episode to never acknowledge it again, except for in like season 20 where Bart makes fun of Armin Kamzarian. Yeah, absolutely magical seasons of a TV show that was unlike any other TV show at its time, and really happy that it's still around. Like, I don't resent them for still making episodes of it. It doesn't obviously have the like magic that it once had, or at least not that I remember it having. But you know, what's the saying? Something doesn't stay forever. Something about gold. I don't know, man. I'm continuing to just do highlights with our... At this point in time, this is pretty much just pure fall green, scale color fall green. And again, we're trying to keep up the idea that this is a nice shiny tree. So our highlights are small, they're very, very refined, and they're very, very bright, and the brighter that they get. So where they go from being general highlights or general changes of color. So you can see here we're doing like color transition work, but where they come to actually being highlights, we're being very, very small and delicate with these. Very refined highlights like this make things look shiny. When you go with broader highlights of less extreme color shift, it doesn't tend to look shiny. It tends to look satin all the way through to matte. Matte colors tend to not have as much matte finishes don't have as much reflectivity, so generally they don't have as high a highlight on them. But in the case of this guy right here, I'm using very pure form of this fall green now, nice green yellow color, to provide some nice refined highlights. And I might come in with either birch or probably birch on this stuff, just to give our final few glints, because again, we're trying to make this look as if it's a nice... Got a little overly broad there. What am I doing? Preaching nice tight highlights, and then I'm just dropping paint like a madman. Yeah, when we're doing shiny surfaces, again, small, very bright highlights, we still need them to transition to the highlight color. They can't come out of nowhere. But the transitions are very, very short between colors. I'm not going to leave huge gaps. Like, we're not going to go from, like, you know, this is sort of our base color around here. We're not going to go straight from that to our highlight color. That's insanity. We don't do that no matter what we're painting. We always transition from one color to the next in a logical sequence, but those transitions can be really, really small, and that helps to sell the illusion of shiny things. Shininess, small, refined, tiny highlights with rapid transitions from mid-tone to bright, as well as rapid transitions from mid-tone to shadow. All the colors are still present, it's just condensed down on itself. Now, if I was going for something more than just like my own edifice of this model and like wanting to do, you know, competition pieces, I'm going to do this 3 or 4 times. So I'm going to bring this up. You know, the skin, we did it twice. If I was doing this for competition, again, I would just go back through. Everything goes back. So we go back, you know, so when we're talking about like on the armor here, armor goes back to, we reapply the mid-tone one more time, and we refine all of the shapes that are on this armor one more time, right? We reapply highlights, we reapply, even though we've got lots of shapes, it's just gonna help with how smooth the transition between everything is. And it's gonna help to make sure that we are placing everything where we want it to go. Again, same with the skin. I'd go back to our skin mid-tone, and I'd reapply the skin mid-tone all the way across the skin, and then we come back in and redo the shadows and redo highlights and all the rest of it, just to make sure that we are getting the transitions that we're thinking we are putting down. I say that because now that I've got more of the model kind of sorted out as far as color and stuff goes, and I've got color in more places, I can see where I am too light, I can see where I'm too dark, I can see where, you know, we're starting to see where we can balance out colors across the model. And as much as I love the reflection that I put on the chest there, on the skin, it doesn't read black enough to me, so I'm just gonna make it a little bit smaller, refine that shape before we move into doing things like hair and whatnot, because that's probably where I'm gonna head next. I'm actually gonna do bits of this glaive. I think Adam decided it was a glaive for me yesterday, so I'm gonna actually do the glavedy bits here in a second. I'm just gonna again reapply our mid-tone, all across the glaive. Make sure that it's nice and covered. I apologize if you can hear my puppies fighting in the background. They're not actually fighting, just one of them is really, really aggressive sounding. Artemis knows that everyone loves her. She is well aware of how beautiful she is, and she is truly a very beautiful little sheep. But she also believes that that means she can be a loud, aggressive sounding dog, and that people will let her get away with it. Especially her little brother, who is just the softest, gentlest boy. And he lets her get away with it, so she kind of gets a little heavy-handed with her younger brother. As one does! As a younger brother, I can definitely tell you that chasing your little brother around, yelling at him, definitely not something that only dogs do. That is a behavior I have observed in outside of dog kind. I mean, I totally deserved it every time, so like don't think that this is some sort of admonishment of my dogs or like endorsement of my own behavior as a little brother. We sometimes deserve to get chased around the yard and yelled at. I wasn't really intending on working on the helmet right now, but I've got it on the palette right now, so I'm just working a couple of the shadows with this shadow color. Because that feels like the right thing to do just in this moment. And since I'm probably live alone right now, although Eat Your Face is probably still around, I don't know, I don't have my viewer count up because I don't tend to look at the viewer count while I'm live. Just gonna refine some of these shapes with our face mask here by adding some shadows in. And I know that there is a shape to this glaive that I want to capture, but I haven't really plotted it out yet. So instead, I'm just gonna go on the surfaces that I know I'm going to have shadowed and just quickly apply some shadows to those so that they are nice and shadowed as we get into creating let's create a tone. You know what? I'm gonna finish the inside of the shield here. That's what I'm gonna do right now. Let's finish the inside of the shield. So I'm gonna take some birch. I'm gonna combine it with the tone we used for the inside of the shield, some birch. Let's start picking out some of the texture. I wonder if you guys, let's see, you guys can see it like that. What I'm mostly doing here is I'm going to choose some of these reeds, highlight them. I'm not going to do all of every reed in here because I only want some portions of some of the reeds to get highlighted. Again, wicker or reeds or whatever this is that's on the inside of this is... It is always a tricky material in my mind to render correctly because A, this is the inside of a shield, so it is invariably, this is already a deep shadow place. It is not the sort of part that I want people to look at and be like, wow, look at the inside of that shield, that is cool. Because if people are looking at this, like, yes, I want this to be a detail that reveals itself if you are looking for it, but I don't. This is the part of the model that makes it a cool model. This is the part of the model that makes it so that it's got lots of detail to it. But I also don't want this to be the part of the model that, like, anybody cares about. Now, it also is compounded with the fact that I have placed this directly in the shadow. So this is the direction of light on our model, like directly into the camera here. That is the direction of, you'll notice how much light is there. Not a lot, right? Not a lot of light coming in from that direction. So again, we shadowed most of the stuff yesterday, and I'm just bringing these reads up so that I can go over this again with some thin down Vallejo, what is it? Vallejo Game Color Smoky Ink. A little bit of AK Interactive, AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish mixed together because that's the way that I like to rock this particular Casbah. Probably 2 to 1 or so ish ratio. I don't ever know to give you. Do ratios help? Put it in the comments. If you want me to put up ratios of everything that I'm mixing together, cool. Just let me know. I will say them out loud. I can't say that I keep to it every time. But like, I will at least try to remember to give you guys that help, that insight, if that helps you guys with your painting. So you guys can see, we're getting got a little bit too much wash on there right now, but, and I'll come back in with the black wash, that black and mahogany wash combo, or ink combo. I'm just going to draw that up into, while the wash is wet, I'm going to draw that up into the top part of the shield. Give it a little bit more reinforcement of those really dark color, the black color, instead of just our smoky ink color.
E. Jervis said feeling out the paints myself is probably a better teaching tool.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things I always get. Not always. Insta, when I got paint jobs and stuff going up, and one of the major comments that comes in is like, what is the ratio of paints that you're using? And I'm always like, man, I got a wet palette that is full of crap that I've been using for the last week. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Mix all your colors together and use that brown? I don't know. I'll tell everybody the starting space, but like, what is the color that's here? Because this is Mechanica Standard Gray, and then it's Mahogany, and then it's Mahogany and like Fall Green, and then a combination of Golden Skin Birch and Teneri Yellow? Like, is that helpful to anyone? Obviously it is. People wouldn't ask if it wasn't helpful to them, but like... Or maybe they would. Maybe they would ask and be like... And then their only thought is, well, that's not really helpful to me. That is too many colors. You said that... I always like seeing those, the IG posts where it is just like, they're just big swatches of color next to how they have painted certain things. And I'm like, that's cool and everything, but that's not actually how you painted that. Like, it's not like you have like a big teal swatch on that part of your model. Like, it's neat that you called out the teal, and it does definitely like help to understand some of the color theory, I guess, behind that part of the model. But like, anyway, especially since I paint in scale color for the most part, and that is not the world's most popular. It's not the easiest to get a hold of paint series. Just straight up isn't. So I don't know. Never know how much of that stuff is helpful. And I don't want to sound like I'm channeling Vince Venturella or anything, but like, as Vincey says, like, I can tell you where it's gonna start. I can't tell you where it's ended. You gotta experiment with this stuff to a certain degree on your own and get confident in the paint that's on your palette. So if it's good enough for Vincey V, I feel like it should be good enough for me. Well, that's not true. I feel like it's far too good for me. Vince is actually like he is a very good painter. And way more into the hobby than I am. I like the painting part. He is definitely a Warhammer Fantasy Battle / Age of Sigmar player. I just... Plastic army men look cool. Herder, I guess. Like, I wish it was more than that, but like, that's pretty much where my involvement in like the hobby, the like game part of the hobby is concluded. The like half dozen games of Kill Team that I've managed to play doesn't really qualify me for the hobby part of the hobby. Sorry, I just went across the knuckles on our on the right hand there. They're very, very pointy, so I was like, you know what, if they're that pointy, I should probably call them out. So I just put a little bit of birch mixed with some mid-tone, the mahogany on there. Just called them out, just gave them a little bit of pointy tips on there, because that felt right. That's what I felt in the moment. Just those really pointy tips were calling out to me. They're like, hey, we're nice pointy tips. And I was like, well, I should probably give you some life, call you out, because you're an interesting little bit of this model that I feel like could use that call out. Just coming back over top of our...
Jervis said I'd like to try tabletop sometime, but I'm a 3D printer, so that's where my primary interest is.
Yeah, that's totally fair, and I am a bad 3D printer, man. I have... Let's say I got a Photon S and a Photon Mono downstairs that I run pretty regularly. But I still fail like 1 in 3 prints. And I wish I had more patience for doing supporting and stuff like that, but I just throw things on at random and try them. I have no idea what the theory behind stuff is to like improve my success rates. But it seems that, you know, I use all the spreadsheets and whatnot and try to follow advice that I find online. And as I said, I get about 1 in 3 that still fail on me. That's fine. It's not like it's life and death for me. It's not like I make a living 3D printing or anything. It's normally just printing off more stuff to paint or bits so that I can add it on. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here. I will be back in about 5 or so minutes. Just my dogs are outside and it's starting to rain. So I'm going to go and collect them because that feels like the right thing to do. In the meantime, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a slideshow. If you want to be included in the slideshow, you can always send your stuff. We've got a Discord, just Choice Minis on Discord. You can always hit me up on Instagram. You can find me, I am Choice Minis. You can find the better half of this streaming duo, even though we're single tonight. Adam Grimm, beach_vacation_Mando on Insta. Just send us your stuff. Love to feature other people's work in the slideshows and stuff. So give you a little twirly tour of what we got painted so far. I think we're pretty much there right now for skin and for the armor. Man, gotta fix that white balance on that camera because it is all over the place. At any rate, we will fix that at some point, probably tomorrow before we go live. But yeah, I'll also take some photos and throw it up on Instagram because I can tell you in person, definitely looking different than what we got on the stream. Now, I trust my eyes more than I trust the stream cam. So, but I'm gonna take a quick tenner here, go rescue my dogs from the rain. I'll be back. What up? We're back. We are back. Let's find a color for this wood bits. I think wood bits and horn are all gonna be... So when I say wood bits, I don't mean like armor bits. I mean our staff, our shield here. Now I'm also gonna include the horns in that. Let's figure out a color for those. Let's figure out what that's gonna be. I want it to be a really pale green, and since I've been using... birch and... Let's just see where this mixture goes. I'm gonna grab some birch. I got some birch. Let's take some of this birch. Let's take a little bit more of that birch. Let's take some fall green. Yeah. Yeah, I'm liking where we're at with that. Alright. Let's get this onto the model. So just avoiding stuff that we've already painted. Don't care about the hair yet. The hair is going to be a different color. I've decided just right now that the hair is going to be a different color, so we will worry about that in a minute. And I'm going to make that this little bit here. Actually, no. This little bit up near the top here is also going to be made out of wood. So we're just going to get all this stuff really carefully painted up. As you guys can tell, I've swapped out to my enormous size 6 brush here. And again, same regular way that I do base coating. Thin coats, many thin coats. Big brush, thin coats. Just put it on rapidly. Just getting it spread onto the material quickly, keeping a wet edge, not futzing about too much. There we go. Yeah. Again, these horns, same deal. Keeping a wet edge, moving quickly. Oops. It's all good. This is why we move quickly. So that I can also take it off quickly. Just scrubbing at it with my fingers. Like a heathen. There we go. Just about got our first base of this stuff on. You know what? I'm actually liking this color more than my old wood approximation. I'm liking this yellowy color as a contrast to the purple that we've got in certain places. And we can see how it sort of matches into some of the other colors that we've got. I like working with minimum color palettes. You know, if we're going to use a color one spot on the model, I like to try and bring it into other places, except for when we're using accent colors. Yeah. Now, I got that first sort of base coat done. Obviously, I was avoiding getting into detailed spots because I'm using a gigantic synthetic brush that has literally no tip to it. Well, not no tip to it, but like, yes, hopefully it'll come into focus here pretty quick. You guys can see what kind of tip that's got on there. Not a great one. This is just a cheap brush, so. In those areas where I do need to go through and do a little bit more detailed work, I'm just gonna come pick up the same base color. Again, thin coats, moving quick. We're just gonna be close, because I've got some, you know, clearly I've got some detail work to do in places. But again, nice thin coats. Just work around our details that are already done, the skin and whatnot. Try as much as possible not to get it onto the stuff that we've already painted, but obviously if a little bit gets here and there, good news, we're using a wet palette, so we can always come back, grab colors that are on the wet palette. This is the like wonder and glory of the wet palette. I cannot speak enough good things about wet palettes. Being able to keep colors alive the entire project through, super useful. Without having to remix, without having to go back and look for them again. Having them be alive and sitting on the palette waiting for you for when you mess up, accidentally paint that wrong area the wrong color. Super key. Super key. Let's get this horn. And again, even with the mask and stuff, I'm not super worried right now if I get a little bit of this color on the mask. Because the wet palette. Because wet palette, I can just come back with the proper color off the wet palette, rebase coat that stuff. It's not that big a deal. Just not that big a deal. This color is also going to be the basis for the gem in our tummy. So, just like the Spirit of Durthu has something fairly close to this, vaunting forth from his face hole of magic. On this guy, our little tummy gem here, same sort of deal. So I'm gonna use this color, start base coating this gem in as well. Again, many thin coats. I'm not gonna get this in one. We're not gonna get this in two. We're gonna get this in a dozen. And that's fine. I don't know about you guys, but painting is a hobby for me. So since this was a hobby, since this one is for me, this is a personal project for me, it can take as long as it needs to take to get it done. Doesn't need to be done today. I would like to get this guy done this week, but you know, if I don't, meh. It's not like the world ends. So again, now that some of our base coats are a little closer to dry, like our broad base coats, I'm just coming back in with the large brush, doing more of our base coats. Nice, broad, sweepy strokes, moving quickly. Trying not to get it on anything that it's not supposed to be on, but again, if anywhere pretty much short of the skin and armor it gets on there, nah, not that big a deal. You can correct it at any time. Oh yeah. I'm liking where we are going with this. Now, if you guys are watching this and find yourself thinking, what about this technique or that technique? Guys, I'm always happy to answer questions about your painting dilemmas. I might not have the best answers, but I have answers. I have the answers that I would use, or at least the ones I would try with my own models, so, you know, that's gotta count for something, right? And if it doesn't to you, that's cool. You're just here to hang out? That's alright too. I say guys, people, ladies, men, gentlemen, attack helicopters and bayonets, all are welcome. Alright, so I'm doing that thing where I'm using the gigantic brush for an inappropriate task because I try and paint in like tiny details and stuff. Again, what I'm mostly trying to accomplish when I've got the big brush out is nice base coats, nice thin base coats, evenly applied, large areas. And the reason why we're moving fast with nice broad strokes on big basey areas like this, like on big base coaty areas. We use thin coats, many thin coats, because that just works better. We don't touch wet paint. Once paint is wet and on the model, we're just gonna leave it there, unless we are doing specific techniques that require working wet on wet. So if we are wet blending, or we are really wet blending, really just wet blending. If we're wet blending, sure, work wet on wet, that's fine. The worst thing that you can do though is have paint that is drying or approaching the point where it is flashing off. So where the solvents are flashing, in acrylic paint terms, that is normally when the water is evaporating. If you keep touching mostly dried paint with more solvent, so more water, more whatever, you're eventually going to start ripping that paint back off of the model. I can tell you this is how 99% of gross textures happen on models, is when you're working semi-dried on wet on semi-dried. That is where the problems, the bad times happen. Don't do that. It's bad. It's also easily avoided. Let's make some more of this color. So again, this is birch. We grab some of our fall green. That's a little too much fall green. Let's add just a little bit more birch in there. Yeah. Yeah, I like where that's at. That's nice. So it's a partially desaturated color, but we still definitely got that like strong green hint to it. You'll see what we're gonna do for how do we make a shadow on this color that you've created? Choice. The answer is A, carefully, and B, it's not that hard. We're actually gonna use sort of a contrast. We're gonna come in with a much bluer tone to create the shadow on this, just to keep it real interesting, because that's how we make interesting colors, is by using different forms of contrast. I know I've talked about this on a number of streams, and the reason why I like talking about contrast so much is because I find so much of the advice on the internet, so much of, you know, everybody, and I'm not gonna like call out anybody in particular, but so much of the advice that I hear given on the internet is this needs more contrast. And when I was new to the hobby, or when I first started like really trying to get into, okay, well, what is that? How do I improve my paint? Like, how do I improve my paint jobs? I am clean, I have control of the brush, I know what's going on. How do I take my paint from that step to the next step? Like, what is the next level? And everybody always says like, oh, well, it's contrast. Now, part of my day job is doing graphic design, and I inherently sort of know what that is. Like I understand because of the world that I work in. It never really struck home for me when people were giving it as advice on like mini painting channels and whatnot. You know, you submit something to somebody's channel and they're like, this is a good paint job, but it needs more contrast. And you're like, well, what heck? What is contrast, right? Like, how do I develop this mythical beast that is contrast? Contrast comes in essentially 3 forms. So you get contrast, the easiest way to think about it, the one that is most commonly thought of, I guess, is contrast of lumosity. This means the light value. So how bright something is, right? How white is it? Versus how black is it, right? That is one very easily readable form of contrast. And when, you know, when you look at your, if I was to take a black and white photo of our little mans here, if I took a photo and I just put it straight up in black and white, and I looked at him, and I could still read all the shapes, I could still read the raised areas, which right now I can't. I already know that there is more work to do in that department on this model. But if I can put this entire model in black and white, and I can clearly see where it, and it was all evenly lit and whatnot, and I could clearly see the shapes and forms of the model, and it was definitely informing me as to how everything kind of comes together. Great, that is good contrast in black and white. That is contrast of lumosity. There are other forms of contrast. The next most popular one is contrast of hue. This is where like color schemes and stuff come into play as far as how do you create contrast. So contrast of hue has to do with something called the color wheel, which everybody at some point in time on YouTube or Twitch pulls out ye olde color wheel, and they talk about things like split complementaries and you know, all of the buzzwords around contrast. Basically, contrast of hue was to be if everything were of equal luminosity. So if I took everything, all of your colors, and reduced them to being the same amount of brightness, could I still read the form and shape of your model? Right? Could I still read the form and shape of your paint job if it were just blocks of blue with differing amounts of hue? So now I'll say right now, this model, not a great example right now, and it's because I'm trying to match an old paint scheme that I did. Black on this dark brown, especially since I have so much brown in the skin and the purple right now, all of this stuff is very, very close in hue. Like, it's not great hue separation, which is why I have these like really bright yellows, right? And why I'm going to be working more yellows, greens into the glaive blade, into the helmet, that sort of stuff. Why I'm working it into the gem on the tummy. All of that stuff is to create separation as far as hue. The highest separation in hue values are colors that are opposite to each other on the color wheel. So I could pull up a color wheel and we could talk all the way through that now, but I feel like doing that another day. I'm just going to introduce them again today. The final form of contrast that you can create is the contrast of saturation. And this is colors that have so saturation, the big thing for understanding how contrast of saturation works is just really, really saturated colors against less saturated colors. When I talk about what is saturation, it is essentially the amount of gray that is in a color. You'll notice that I've taken colors, so like the basis of, say, our helmet here is sunset purple. And that is going to play a much larger role. You can see, even without it being in focus, you can see how saturated that color is in comparison to what's actually on the model. And that's because I've mixed in a bunch of the like actual base, like the mid-tone for the skin into that. And then I've since then been working in blacks and browns into it, because I want those shadows to sort of not be that saturated and not have that huge separation of saturation when we're looking at like into the skins and stuff like that. even the difference of saturation in these horns, as I get to the ends of these horns, I'm gonna make these horns really, really, like, it's gonna go well into fall green when we get to the tips of these horns. The bases of these horns are gonna go into like a blue spectrum. But I'm gonna leave a large majority of the highlights and stuff of these horns. They're gonna go further and further towards white. Like, they're gonna get less saturated and brighter. I hope that that makes sense to people who aren't just inside of my head. If it doesn't, that's fine. You can ask me more questions about it. Question my wisdom on there are 3 different types of saturation. You need to use all of them together in order to make a model actually have contrast. Question the advice that you hear on the internet. Not all of it is good. Some of it comes from me. Alright. Continuing to base coat. So you guys can see base coating, especially going over some of the darker colors that I have on this, it takes a while. There's no rapid presto changeo version of this that makes this faster. I wish there were, but there is most definitely not. This is just, it takes a while. It does. For our hair, this is where, so a lot of this model is very much in the warm spectrum of things. Let's get the last few base coats on here, just so you guys can see this in total, so that we can see where we're gonna go with this. Let's get the last few base coats on. Let's get the base coat on our leaves, our leaf dress. This is also gonna get pushed up into the leaves in the top of the model. So for this, I'm gonna use a combination of scale color. I'm probably gonna do deep red and orange leather. Still a little purple on the deep red. I might actually switch that out for Aldebaran, or possibly, I don't know. Let's start mixing up a color and see how I feel about it. You know what? No, I'm looking at this one more time and I'm like, nah, too much purple. Too much purps. All right. Gonna use some Aldebaran and orange leather together. So orange leather is a nice brown orange. It's probably about a 2-to-1. Let's make sure that you guys can see this mix. So it's these guys down here. It's about 2-to-1 orange leather to Antares red there. Oh yeah. So the reason why I'm using orange leather is it is a nice brownish orange. Again, sort of a desaturated color. I might incorporate just a tad. Well, we'll see what we do in the shadows. That'll come here in a second. Let's get this on the model first, or let's start at least getting this partially base coated onto the model first. Again, I'm being careful around the areas that I've already painted, so skin, all the rest of it. But otherwise, even this like stuff that's on the back here, not super worried about it. We'll just get paint on the model. I do love these leaf skirts on the new Sylvaneth. I'm not a huge fan of our new Sylvaneth flute player. I know that he's supposedly really great in the meta, like on the tabletop. That's cool. I think he looks goofy, but that's fine. This is not that big a deal to me. I tend to paint models that I think look cool, and then we go with whatever else afterwards. Right? Rule of cool? If it looks cool to me, then it's something I'm willing to paint. If it does not, then somebody had better be paying me to paint it for them. Again, we're getting into some tight spots here. This is why I wanted to do this now as opposed to later. Just knowing that I might have to repaint some bits because I might touch them with the orange accidentally. Trying to be careful about it. Trying to... We were relatively successful. There's one little dot there that I messed up on. Luckily, stuff that is in that area of the model is in pretty deep shadow for the armor plates, so not a huge deal as far as cleaning that up. Make sure we actually have our brush loaded. That's another thing that I always struggled with starting out is what is the difference between a thin layer of paint? How are we feeling about that compositionally? I think we're going to introduce even more red into this color. But for right now, we're going to let it dry up. Let's put this on the leaves up top, just so that we've got some... So again, right now, we're using orange versus green-yellow. That's a pretty decent contrast right there as far as... So we had our nice, deep, rich mahoganies up into more green tones. And now we're coming in with this sort of muted orange, this muted burnt orange color. All of this working to create interest and flow in the model. So the reason why we went with this green incorporated into the tips of the leaves is, again, we're trying to create concentric circles. We're doing the same thing right now with the orange. We're creating a concentric circle of this orange. We're going to do the same thing with the purple. We're going to create concentric circles of purple. This is all a part of... I know that I seem like I am just sort of winging it as far as paint colors go. I know that I want certain matching colors in certain places on the model so that it continues the color transfers into different parts of the model. So it moves from one part of the model to the other. That smoke ink that we used on the inside of the shield is going to make a big appearance as far as the inside of this cloak and on the backs of the cloak. I'm also going to do a little bit more reds on certain ones of these leaves just to, again, I want some interest. If all these leaves are exactly the same, they're not as interesting as they could be. If they're going to grace us with all of the modeling of those individual leaves, even though I'm certain that they are just ZBrush copy paste. I do a little bit of 3D modeling. I'm bad at it. But as much as I'm certain that they are just ZBrush copy paste versions of each other, doesn't mean we have to paint them as if they are all exactly the same. We can add interest. We can make some that are a little more yellow, some that are a little more green, some that are a little more red. All of those perfectly valid, useful things to create more interest in our paint job. So let's use those moments of interest, those moments of potential inflection to create interesting paint jobs. Things don't need to be absolutely unified. They don't need to be all exactly the same. These are leaves. This guy is made of nature magic. This is not Space Marine. It's not Space Marine armor. Didn't come from a factory downtown. Came from the forest. Or at least I assume that that's how Sylvaneth work. I should really know more lore. I am slowly learning lore for AOS. But such is life. Let's get up into those leaves on the top. And again, give them another coat of our base here. And again, these ones also might get a little mottled. Like we might introduce some other colors into these leaves. They don't need to be just strictly orange.
Jurvis said, I'm stuck in old world. Those Total War games are addictive.
Yeah, man. I have been playing Total War games since I want to say Shogun. Yeah, it was Shogun. Shogun was the first. Then Rome. and Rome 2 probably. But I have been, like, I do love those games. I haven't played Old World. Like, I haven't played Warhammer Fantasy. Only because I know that I will lose several days of my life to it. And, it's not that I'm saying that, like, video games are a waste of time. Far from it. It's just that I know me. You guys... It'll be like 15 minutes or before a stream, and I will have done none of the rendering for stream and all the rest of it, and be like, oh, we're live in 15. Oops. That will be how my life will become, because I only have so much time to dedicate to hobby stuff, and if it all gets eaten by video games, that's cool, but like, not... I like the streaming stuff. I like sharing the experience, so... Again, just going around the model. Once we got a nice strong base coat all the way across the model, we'll start into our last couple of base coat colors here, because we got some golds that we need to pick out, so I'm going to definitely work on those. We also have some white to pick out, so we have some stuff on this model that is going to be a very, very blinding white. Just so that I can fit it in with other elements of my army. So I'm gonna make sure that that fits. And I want army, I mean like the start collecting box that I've got, plus some tree revenants that I've done, so yeah. Actually, this might be my most complete army, other than like, I've got a full 2,000 points of Necrons around here. I mean, the other thing with the Total War games is a lot of what they've released as far as factions, a lot of that, not all of it, but much of it actually does transfer through into Sigmar, other than the lore doesn't transfer as well. The heroes and stuff all transfer, the lore not as much, so. At least most of the heroes. There are certain ones who are dead in Sigmar, or just haven't shown up yet in Age of Sigmar. As is the way of things, I guess. You know, not everything makes it forward into the Age of Sigmar.
E. Jurvis said needs more Cetra.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. You're not going to get a whole lot of Tomb Kings. We got OCR Bone Reapers instead, and trust me, I know that that is a trade down. I know that that is a trade down. No one needs to convince me that the Ossiarch Bone Reapers are not as good as the Ye Olde Tomb Kings, because I love Tomb Kings, and unfortunately I finally kind of got into fantasy right as they announced that the Tomb Kings were not making it out of the old world. And I remember standing in my friendly local gaming store, Sentry Box here in Calgary, and looking at all of the Tomb King models that were still on the shelves at 40% off. And I was like, do I just buy them all? I was like, I don't know, like, maybe. And then I sort of hesitated, and I never really talked to anybody about it, because A, I wasn't that much, like, I was buying minis for D&D at that point in time. And like, I didn't really know what was going on with Age of Sigmar. I just started buying Warhammer minis because I was tired of trying to paint Reaper minis. Like Reaper metal minis, not even like bones. Well, some bone stuff, but early bone stuff was bloody awful. So I started buying Games Workshop minis, you know, $45 for a single model, and was like, well, these are clearly superior. But yeah, I stood there and I was like, well, those are cool Skelebrows. And I do like the Egyptian theme. And then by the time I came in, like, I think I was in there on a Thursday, and by the time Saturday morning came around, all of it was sold out. And I was like, well, that'll learn me for not just jumping on stuff when I have the chance. So, sucks, but now they have an entire painted army there, so they do consignment sales for armies and stuff like that, and they have an entire painted army, and somebody wants, I think it's just about $2,000 for it. There is a set of the, what are they? They're like there's skeletons that are on the backs of like the bone cobras. It's such a cool model kit, especially for like that age of GW. They want like $700 for it because it's sealed. I was like, ain't nobody paying that. Ain't nobody paying that. So I obviously did not pay that. It will sit in their consignment cabinet forever until somebody laughs themselves silly and buys it because they're not smart. Or they'll sell it on eBay. Or they'll hope that the guy who put it on consignment forgets that it's there in 2 years or whatever when they take it over, like when they no longer have to honor the consignment contract, reduce the price to sell it. I keep saying that. There is also like a box of original Rogue Trader in there that is like $2,000, so it's, I mean, it is a sealed box of Rogue Trader, but like also Sentry Box doesn't put things on sale. That's not true. I was in there last week and there was something on sale. No, it was this week. Oh, it was old Infinity starter boxes. That's what it was. Oh, and second edition Malifaux boxes were on sale. I was like, well, okay, cool that the discontinued game is on sale. You did it. Sorry, I shouldn't be slagging on them. I really do love Sentry Box. Not that they're listening, but they might be. You never know. Sometime in the future, they're listening to this and they're like, hey, why is he so mean to us? And the answer is, because nothing's ever on sale. I wish just once something was on sale, Sentry Box. Doesn't have to be anything cool, just something. Something that is current, not something that has been discontinued and will otherwise sit on the shelves forever.
Said we are listening. Fine said we always are. Fine Bloomin. Said Panoko.
Thanks, Fine Bloomin. Thank you for reminding me that Sentry Box is always listening. Glad to know that I now need to be paranoid about my friendly local gaming store hating me. Well, if they're gonna hate me for this, they're definitely gonna hate me for the number of times that I was like, your guys' website sucks so bad, can I please just redevelop it for you? I won't even charge you money for it. Yes, I will redesign your store's, like, point of sale system at the same time. I can do that. I know how to do it. I did it for a grocery store with 40,000 items. I can definitely take care of your, like, consignment sales and all the rest of it. The only thing I think I would have a little bit of an issue with is their loyalty program, but like 20 minutes later it'd be fine. Now everybody gets to try and think up, what could my job possibly be where I have to do graphic design combined with website development combined with database management? And the answer is I run nonprofits. So the more you can do with your own, skill, the less you have to hire it all out and spend a lot of money hiring other experts. Instead, I can hire myself out for a third the price and underbid them all and do a job that is at least 80% as good. I'm not gonna lie to it. There are other experts that can definitely do it faster than I can, but I'm not sure that is always something that I tell the client before I go ahead and take on projects, is like, listen, I can save you money, but it's gonna take longer. You will pay less in the end than other bidders, but like, it's gonna take me longer to get it done for you. And so far, I don't think I've ever had a client come back and be like, I wish we had gone with the other way and spent more money on this, so. I don't know if that's a win in my column or not, but like, just the reality of working in nonprofit consulting, I guess. Nonprofit management. If you
Chris Studio. Said evening.
What's up, Chris? Hey man, how you doing? What is up, everybody? How's everybody's evening going? We are still working on our Arch-Revenant here. I'm just trying to right now I'm getting the rest of our base colors on. Right now I'm putting down Dubai Brown to get some This is eventually going to be some non-metallic metal, and I'm going to do it with a little bit of a green cast to the non-metallic metal.
Or Chris Studio. Said NM. Wrote off the day to catch up on sleep. Body basically was in shutdown mode XD.
Oh yeah? Everything doing all right? I don't want to pry too much into your private life, but like I hope you're doing fine. And if not, Dish, what's up, brother? Let us commiserate with your shutdowns. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was originally gonna like paint Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. Like that was my plan. I was like, I got a week off. The project that I wanted to complete this week isn't gonna get done this week. Like just budgeting timelines were all off. So I'm gonna stream every day this week just to do it, right? I didn't get that opportunity because I spent all of Monday just flat out dead. I actually spent most of Sunday that way too, but I got my second dose, and second dose much worse than the first. I got Pfizer for my second, I got Pfizer for my first, and my second dose of Yieldy COVID vaccine. I believe I texted Mr. Grimm at one point in time, and I was like, Adam, I wish that I was either more feverish right now.
Studio. Said I'm alright, just been a lot of things going on. I've had a couch surfer for 2 weeks, got YAAI too much sun this weekend, so I think I got sunstroke, and the last 3 months I've had a lot of commissions piling up because I've been working on Resin Beast entries. Choice but said or Chris Studio - please refrain sending long messages.
Huh. Thanks, ChoiceBot, but also I don't care if it's long messages. I'm gonna go and fix that in a setting somewhere. Yeah, man.
Jervis said I had a real good nap post Pfizer part 2.
Oh yeah, I wish it had just been a nap. I got all feverish and I texted, like, I literally messaged...
Chris Studio said LMAO.
Yeah, I messaged Adam at one point in time. I was like, buddy, I wish that I was more feverish so that I could get like some sweet hallucinations going on, or that like this would pass faster, because like the situation we're in right now, totally not worth it. I mean, always worth it in comparison to getting COVID, Studio but like...
Said I got number 2 Pfizer coming up next Tuesday.
Nice, man. If you haven't already booked your vax, and you can, please get your second vaccine. Get your first one if you haven't got it. Please get your second one if it's available. We are so close. This Delta variant stuff, it doesn't need to be a thing. We can just beat this. We have the technology, we have the power, we have the opportunity. Let's just get it done. I'm tired of this. I don't want to hear about... There will be other pandemics in my lifetime. I have no doubt. It's just... We can beat this one. We got it on the ropes. Let's just get it done. Get it over with. Be done with this particular pandemic, and maybe the next time it comes around, maybe we hopefully have the opportunity to beat it equally quickly as this one. But hopefully faster, to be honest with you. But like, you know, at least this one we got a cure for. Also, I'm assuming that you had a good time on July 4th. We had an awesome... Adam and I finally got to see each other in person on the weekend for the first time since... Well, other than through a fence, the first time since lockdown started. We finally got to hang out. That was fun. We had a bunch of our friends around. We went, had a fire in his backyard, celebrated our collective birthdays. It's good times. It was really nice to be able to see everybody. But man, if we could not do this for another decade or two, that'd be cool. Like, I don't care if I'm in my like 80s the next time the next one of these like pandemic situations happens, that's fine. Assuming that society hasn't collapsed before then, I'm cool with dealing with this one in like 40 years. That'll be fine. I don't want another one like next year. I don't want to be dealing with like a Delta variant lockdown. That sounds like... We already had enough lockdown. No more lockdown. Not that I like protesting the lockdown. It's for the greater good, right? Man, I should play Tau. I should not play Tau. Tower's so awful in 9th edition that I can't even convince myself that I want to, like, even entertain the idea of playing Tau in 9. Ah, so we've made the rules fundamentally unfair to the Tau. Why is that? Well, we made it so that you could at maximum add +1 to shooting. Isn't the entire point of the Tau that you add +1,000,000 with 1,000 marker drones? Why, yes it is.
Chris Studio said, I'm fine being an entitled old man saying, you know, I remember the pandemic of 2020. We had to walk 5 kilometers in the snow uphill both ways.
Yeah, man. That is very much... That is what I would look forward to, is being an entitled old man. Old man yells at cloud. This is not the first time I've been through a pandemic. Come and listen to this tales of the pandemic of 2020. Right-wing extremist groups had taken over the government. We had to walk in the snow. I don't know where I'm going with this story, but, like, listen. If we could never repeat 2020 again, that'd be just super.
Said I had to stop playing Beer League. Unacceptable.
Right? I had to stop playing D&D. I haven't played D&D, like, we've tried playing online. We tried a couple of times playing online of different, like, and not just, like, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I pulled out Fate, I've pulled out 5e, I pulled out, like, I went through and did the whole, like, Foundry VVT and got a VVT, like a virtual tabletop server set up and all the rest of it. And we, like, guys, I tried, I really did, and we couldn't get it together. And this is, like, my main group for D&D. We have been playing D&D together for, like, basically since the day that 5th edition came out. Part of our group actually was part of the D&D Next playtest. And we couldn't get it together. Like, we could not do the online thing. It didn't work for us. We tried. We had one session of D&D last summer when we were allowed out of lockdown briefly. And then after that, like, I haven't played D&D in a year. I love Dungeons and Dragons. There are very few things in my life that I love more than Dungeons and Dragons, and we haven't played Dungeons and Dragons since last September. Well, since March. We did play the whole VVT thing online, and we got like 4 sessions in, and we're like, nah, this isn't us. I'm just coming in, choosing a few of these leaves to add some alternate colors on, just, you know, for funsies. Feel like we need some funsy leaves. Leaves of differing hues.
Jervis said our DM lost a lot of his inspiration.
Yeah, I've been both a DM as well as a player. The one that we, like, our main group, I'm a player in that one, and our DM, V, I don't know if she's in chat right now or not. She just didn't like playing. Like, she didn't like DMing online. It's really hard. We are a large group. Like, we are somewhere between 6 and 8 players. And it is really hard to manage a group that size online. It was early in the pandemic when we were trying and all the rest of it. Like, we were still, like, most people were still getting their Zoom legs under them and all the rest of it. It was not a great situation. I have lots of fun with DMing. I don't like doing ongoing campaigns. I'm not good at it. I am not good at it with our group. We'll put it that way. There are different styles of DMs for different groups, and our group, I like running one shots for us. I run D&D, like, we go and do D&D weekends where we legitimately, like, it's a weekend for us all to get away, go out into the woods and play D&D together, or go to rent a cabin and play D&D together, that sort of thing. I love doing that sort of stuff. I am not your, like, weekly game DM. That is not what I like to do. So, at least not for this group. I have done it in the past with other groups before. I do really enjoy being a player, though, so that's always a part of it too. I really like playing D&D. Like, I love playing the game as well as running on occasion. So we're still just choosing a...
Said I do feel like I owe the group at least a long one shot.
Yeah, we'll play, like, when we do D&D Canned, which is what we call it, we'll play, oh hell, it's between 15 and 30 hours in a weekend of actual D&D. Like, it depends kind of on what the adventure is and whether or not we have 2 or 3 days together. If it's 2 days together, it's typically we'll play 15 hours in 2 days. If it's 3 days, it's probably closer to 30, just because we'll get, you know, 2 full 12-hour days. Okay, let's clean the inside of the shield. Again, birch. Tiny bit of fall green. Give it a mix. Make sure my brush actually has some moisture in it, because it doesn't right now. Still doesn't really. There we go. Thank you, brush. Let's just clean up these edges where I have clearly gone outside of the lines. Like a 6-year-old. Actually, I feel like 6-year-olds don't go outside the lines as bad as this, but, like, whatever. Gonna besmirch the good name of 6-year-olds? That feels weird to say. Alright. That thing that we started on like a half hour ago. Let's get our staff nice and consistent with base coat color. Do a little bit of cleanup. I'm not super worried about making this entirely clean right now. This is mostly so that I can check composition. Right now I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting a good balance of colors before we start moving into adding a whole bunch of detail into all these pieces, into all these positions. But I'm feeling pretty confident in the color selection here. Obviously, we've got some work to do with our little like moon, with our purple areas. Obviously, we're gonna do this big color transition through those areas. We're getting geared up for that. This gem on the top of the head here is going to be, it's going to be a very vibrant purple. So in contrast to some of our other areas where we're working in more muted colors, that one gem there and the gem on the back. So there is one down here, there's one on there, and there is one on the back here. Those are going to be like violently purple. Our tummy gem here is going to be this sort of life green, life yellow color. This fall green, I believe is what it's called. And that's gonna tie most of that stuff together. Now I have some questions about where we want to go next. What would you guys like to see me paint today? I still gotta base coat the hair, I know that. But that's just getting birch, basically. It might actually... Let me think about this for a second. I'm probably gonna keep that to the warm side, so yeah, it's gonna be birch. It's gonna be birch, so let's just start getting that on there. Right now.
Or Chris Studio. Said Creature Caster King of Malefica. Or Chris Studio. Said, Winky Face.
Huh. You know, I've only ever looked at Creature Caster stuff. I've never actually painted any of it. And that's not to say that I won't paint any of it. I really want to do... It is not the Queens. Trying to remember what it's called. I'm gonna go and look it up here in a second. I'm gonna get this first coat of birch on here. I've looked at doing some Creature Caster stuff. My biggest fear with doing... Not fear. My biggest apprehension against doing creature caster and busts and stuff on the stream is that I am not Miniatures Den. I am not.
Or Chris Studio said I actually got in the top 10 in Resin Beast this week.
Oh, nice! Congratulations,
Studio
man.
Said I was shocked.
I wouldn't be shocked. I've seen your stuff. You're damn decent painter, man. No, my only problem with doing like creature caster, bus, 75 mil stuff is that it is almost a different skill that I have yet to explore, right? Painting two different scales requires a different way of interpreting shapes and light and all the rest of it, and how much you get into details, and it's not something I've explored. I've most of my like hobby time is spent between like N scale train sets and 32 mil stuff. And it's not to say that I would never do 75 millimeter stuff, but
said in your defense, I've never seen Miniden paint creature caster, winky face.
That's fair. Most of his time for the last like 2 years has been painting people's Kickstarter stuff. I don't know. I like working in 32. This is the scale that I am most confident in right now. I have done stuff in 15 mil. It is a painful scale to work in because I still want to treat it like it's 32, even though it isn't. You know, you just getting stuff lit appropriately at 15 mil is damn near impossible, and it's always frustrating to me. And by lit, I mean not just like lit to see it well, but like representing light on it well is very frustrating to me. Because it doesn't really transfer over. Like the technique that we use at 32 mil doesn't really transfer over. And I'm sure that somebody will say like, I do it all the time. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm glad that you can transfer back and forth between those, but I am not, that is not my experience. Hang on, I wanted to look up that stuff from Creature Caster that I actually want to paint. I also kind of wish that I had gotten in on Chimera / Big Child / Scale 75s. No, it wasn't Big Child. It was just Scale 75 and Chimera, the Zodiac one, the Zodiac Kickstarter. I just didn't. All right, shop. It is Ecstasy. It is, there we go. Not the Matriarchs. Oh, maybe it is. Yeah, it is the Matriarchs of Ecstasy. I really want to paint this. This to me is by far the coolest thing that Creature Caster makes. I love Slaneshi Demonettes. I think that these are a way better version of Slanesh Demonettes. I know that they are also larger than Demonettes, like they overall are much larger than Demonettes, but these even, like, I don't really want to paint the twins, even though they just came out, like, and they are really cool models. I like Slaneshi Demonettes. I'm certain that I would get immediately demonetized on YouTube for painting these. Not that I make any money off of YouTube right now anyway, but like, boobs, right? Boobies would definitely get me in trouble. I get reported all over the place, but I would love to, as a personal project, paint this stuff. They don't seem really well painted on, I don't know whose paint job that is. I really wish they would tell you this stuff more. There are all sorts of things about Reaper Minis that I'm not a huge fan of, but at least they tell me who all the modelers and painters are for their stuff. Like, there's tons of reasons not to like Reaper. At least they tell me.
Studio said they usually do.
Yeah, they didn't. It's not on there. Because I've
said script leak.
Yep. You guys can see my script leaks because
Or Chris Studio.
I have basically the same intro and exit.
Is labeled.
Yeah. No, I know, so because I've seen like Ben Cantor gets his shoutouts when he paints stuff for them, so I don't know. Who else was it? Sam. When Sam Lenz had his go up there, they also shouted out Sam's on there too. So like, surprising that they don't have it on there. It's weird. Maybe they're on the individual ones and just not on the group. I just don't like that paint job. Not that it's a bad paint job. It's just not the way I would probably interpret those. They're going very 40k with that paint job. Like, that very much looks like, hey, these are Slaaneshi Demonettes. Just we named them something else. Which is absolutely what they are, and that's what Creature Caster do, but like, I don't know. Be more or less honest about it, I don't know. Let's get some of these ropes painted out in Birch as well, even though Birch is probably a little standouty for what those are supposed to be. Ooh, we're back to our Christmas song. We've clearly listened to all of the chiptunes that don't have royalties attached to them. So let's swap off this chiptune list. Let's go with let's go with some blues. That sounds chill. Yeah, if you guys happen to know who the sculptors and painters are on those, like, let me know.
E. Jervis said there's a guy who pulls 3D file from those Total War games, cleans them up for printing, and give them a goofy off-brand name.
Oh yeah, no, GW is in the middle of their crusade. They're like twice a decade crusade against people stealing their IP right now. With the Age of Sigmar 3 rules and the General's Handbook for, or not General's Handbook, the, what's it called? This year's tournament rules clearly stating that you can't use third-party parts and have your list allowed in the tournament. Cool. Like, I get it. They have to actually protect... Here's the dumb thing about intellectual property law that I absolutely understand and 100% disagree with. In order to own a copyright, in this case, whether it's, you know, like the copyrights that they lost a bunch of access to around the term Space Marine, or there's been a whole bunch of lawsuits. There was actually a pretty big lawsuit that they lost not that long ago, or got a decision against them. They haven't lost it yet because GW has money. At any rate, you never lose when you have money. You just temporarily aren't winning. At any rate, in order to own a copyright in Canada / the US, since we have pretty much unified copyright laws, you actually have to defend your intellectual property. And what the defense of intellectual property means is that you need to go out and find other people who are infringing upon your intellectual property and defend it in a court of law, which is possibly the dumbest way to enforce or to show ownership of a copyright possible, but it is also means to be a way that if somebody abandons intellectual property, that somebody else can own it by not having to purchase it or like have the rights assigned to them. I kind of get both sides of this, but it does also mean that companies like Games Workshop have to go out and sue third-party recasters or bits makers or whatever, and why we have to look around the internet for, you know, like a sexy demon mini 32mm when we're looking for STL files for like bits and stuff, instead of just being able to look up like Slaanesh Demon, right? Because they have to, as a matter of case law, they have to both protect and enforce their ownership on other parties. So that is sending cease and desist letters, that is filing lawsuits, and that is just the way it's created. And it's meant to be that the people with the most money can enforce their copyrights most easily. So, you know, it's not a great system. It's not fair to artists in any way. It's not like, you know, Darren Latham makes more money from GW because GW, you know, sued somebody over a Bellicor recast. I'm using Darren because he's the, you know, sculptor for Bellicor, but, you know, the same deal for all of these companies. Like, if somebody were to go through...
Said I'd be upset if he sold them. It's just a fun thing for him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the same, like, Adam and I talked about this not that long ago, actually. Adam sent me, somebody had extracted, Adam plays a ton of MechWarrior 5, and somebody had pulled the 3D model out of Mech 5 for his favorite mech, the one that he is going to appear in universe as a driver of, because he backed the Kickstarter so that he could do that. But somebody had pulled the actual mech out of MechWarrior 5 for him, and he sent over the STL file to me, and I was like, I can clean this up, but it's going to take like 20 hours worth of like work in ZBrush. Well, not necessarily in ZBrush. It was going to take about 15-20 hours for me to clean it all up, make sure it was supported properly, put it in, what's it called? Blender. Thank you. Blender. Get it in Blender, re-clean it up a little bit, you know, make sure that it was actually solids all the way around, because it was just a bunch of like two-dimensional, it was just polygons running into each other, right? So it had to be an actual physical solid, which it wasn't, because there's all sorts of intersections that were missing. At any rate, it was going to take me a good long time, and we were talking about it, and I was like, you know, if it's a one-off, that's fine, but like, can we not just wait until the plastic kit of this comes out, because we know that there's going to be a plastic kit, not necessarily of your exact loadout, but like something close, right? And we can mod it, like we'll do it as a one-off. So I don't know, I don't mind people pulling 3D assets from games. It's a little different when you're pulling a 3D asset to like sell it, I guess. I don't know, it's a gray area for me. I don't mind when it's companies like GW. I mind more when it's people pulling like Creature Caster or Kingdom Death, or like, you know, the guys that survive almost entirely off of just the models selling. Right? Because it's not like there's like a huge, especially with Kingdom Death, because they are like so, you know, here one day, gone the next kind of a deal. The guys who are recasting that stuff, that bothers me. I understand why they're doing it, and like I understand why people are buying the recast. Like, hey, I wasn't on the website for a week, so I entirely missed a limited edition that's really cool. Yeah, I get why you want to buy the recast of it, but I also guess why it's only on the website for a week, right? Like I understand where they're coming from on that. And also, a lot of how I taught myself both graphic design and 3D modeling was by doing almost exactly that. A lot of it was taking 3D assets out of video games and seeing if I could copy them through whatever means, or taking logos, like company logos or corporate logos, and seeing what I could do to take them out of whatever context they were in, put them into Illustrator, see if I could recreate it convincingly in Illustrator, and then seeing how I could remix. Like, that was a large part of me learning both good graphic design, not just graphic design, but like learning how to construct good graphics. A lot of it came from that. So like, I'm not gonna try and bum anybody out with, hopefully at least with that. Again, we're just cleaning up more and more of the base coats here. That's why I'm not talking so much about what I'm painting, because it's the same thing over and over again. It's many, many thin coats. Many, many thin coats. Eventually we will have a nice, clean series of base coats done. Or we won't, and I'll throw this model in the garbage and never talk to anybody again. That second one is unlikely. I don't think I've ever actually like entirely turfed a model. There is one model that I have looked at and come back to and done like little bits and then like wandered off from again, and that is Nagash. Nagash, who sits directly above my bed and stares at me on a nightly basis, being like, "Why won't you finish me?" The answer, Nagash, is you are gigantic, and I want to put in the time. Here's the deal. Like 4 years ago on my birthday, I bought Nagash for myself because our D&D group was going to be, our D&D group was playing, or still is playing, Tomb of Annihilation. And I was like, the Sararak looks an awful lot like Nagash. Gee, I wonder if that's intentional. And so I bought Nagash and was like, well, I'm going to use you as a Sararak for this campaign. Like, that'll be... You don't necessarily have to fight a Sararak, but knowing our group, we'll fight. We will end up fighting a Sararak. Just, I know us. We will end up in this fight, even though we don't have to, even though, like, everything in the book is like, don't do it. This is a bad choice. Sararak is, like, eons old Demi-Lich who is, like, on several occasions has basically ascended to godhood only to be thwarted at the last second by the forces of Deus Ex Machina. Like, he killed an entire plane of existence at one point in time. Like, don't do it. You're not ready. We're gonna do it anyway, because that's who my D&D group is. We're idiots, but it's fine. We're lovable idiots. All right. Well, apparently no more blues. It's a little sad. We got some chill pop. Nope, apparently not. Let's go with epic. Why not? Let's listen to something epic. This is also how I taught myself how to... Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I also taught myself how to, like, write music based off of stealing soundtracks. So, like, I've done plenty of intellectual property theft in my day. Sorry, I'm listening to this and I'm like, this is somebody who had the Avengers score open in front of them, and then remixed. I've had a weird life. I don't know how to explain to people the number of and variety and, like, breadth of jobs I've had in my day. Cause it's many, and you would not expect them to all be in the lifetime of one person. You'd be like, oh, so that's like 6 different people, and it's like, nah, that was all me. I'm gonna take smoke, so I am taking... This is smoke, Game Ink Smoke, mixed with some AK Interactive matte, ultra matte varnish. I'm just gonna run this around. I want to start looking at texture on these leaves. So this is gonna be a little bit of a unifier. Just having the AK Interactive, having the AK varnish in there is gonna make it so that some of that smoke pigment does stay on the surface of our leaves, of our leaf tabard, skirt, dress thing. It's also going to unify this in a little bit, bringing more browns, like bringing a more rich brown tone into our leaves to bring it closer. Not that I want it overly close, but I do want it to, like, live in the same realm as the rest of our model here, so. Yeah. Let's get that also up onto the leaves on the top of the model, so. Again, I will come back to these leaves, and I'm going to pop some more extreme orange. I'll probably break out, like, the Mars orange or something like that to really, unify, but we'll probably mix some Mars orange into these leaves, like, all the way across the leaf. So that's across the skirt and whatnot, like, down into this area, as well as the stuff that's up on the top as well. We'll be bringing in Mars orange to really define some of these shapes and stuff. We're also probably going to do just a little bit more as far as adding some shadows into some of these shadowed areas. But I'm going to wait for this wash to really finish cooking before I start getting into that. What else can I do tonight? Let's finish off the base coat on that hair, because it is still splodgy and gross. Two technical terms, of course, splodgy and gross. All right. So we're still pretty warm overall in the model. Across all the tones of this model, we have lots of warm tones. And I'm going to start straying from that in some strategic places to break up the model. So we've used warm tones in our shadow across the skin. We've used warm tones in our shadows across, or like basically all of it. I mean, we're using yellows and oranges and browns and purples. Like we really are sticking mostly to warm tones, and even in our purple, which could be a cooler tone, we've chosen a very warm version of purple. We've got lots of brown and red in it, like all the way across this model. So what we want to do to start creating more interest in the model is we are going to start bringing cool tones in selective areas. So whether we are bringing in like cooler greens in certain parts of the model. So for example, in the scroll work inside of the shield, some of the cracks and crevices around our little life gem here, even up into the dark areas of this mask and stuff. That's probably what I'm going to be mostly working on tomorrow. We are, again, back tomorrow with part 3 of our Arch-Revenant, because of course we are, because I love you guys, but we are back tomorrow, and I'll be bringing Adam with me, so we will all get together tomorrow. We will have our Adam back, but we will all get together tomorrow. We will talk a little bit more about where I'm going to be putting cool tones on this model and how to use cool tones effectively to create contrast. So like into the hair he's going to get, we're going to put some cool tones on this mini. Him, her, whatever. Our Arch-Revenant. We're going to, like, especially on this like really interesting texture, this like almost honeycomb-like texture that's on the base of these horns. I really want to accentuate that with probably some cooler greens in there. We'll be working through the hair. That's also going to get some stuff done to it. So now that we've got like nice warm base coats basically all the way across the model, I still have to figure out what I'm doing with this strap, because I don't know what that strap is made out of, and there's no other animal product on this guy, but that strap looks awfully leathery to me. So stay tuned on that. Not sure yet. I'm also going to introduce a little bit more cold tones into the shadows on our non-metallic metal gold. So on, you know, the areas on the rim of the shield, on areas up here, on some of the rings and stuff that are going, like the bands and stuff that are around the, and the little like tchotchkes that are hanging off of them. And then also on our gems, we're going to see a lot cooler colors on that. Just the purple that I have for that is going to contrast with the purple that's on our weapons and on the face mask. So that is all going to come up tomorrow. We're also going to be introducing a little bit cooler tone on our bug friend. That might all happen tomorrow, but we'll see. We will see. In the meantime, I'm going to sign off a little bit early tonight. Just, you know, we're on a bonus stream today, so I don't feel like I need to push all the way for 3 hours, but it was nice having you guys. Or Chris, of course, Eat Your Face. All of you guys. It was really nice seeing you guys tonight. Everybody who stopped in and said hello. If you're watching this at some point in the future, or you're watching this right now, you could always give us a like. That always helps distribute the channel even more. I should actually read the outro that I have. Thank you everybody for watching, commenting, and being with us today. I am Steve Thomas at Choice Minis on your social media of choice. If you like what you saw, take a moment, give us a like, subscribe, hit the little bell so you can hang out with us. If you give us a follow on Twitch, all of that other stuff is for YouTube because, well, YouTube. If you have any suggestions for like models or techniques or anything else that you really want me to feature, I am more than happy to make your dreams come true. You can always just throw it up in chat while you're online with us if you can join us live, or if you're watching this later on, you can throw it in the comments. If you want to email it to me, you can always email it to Adam and I at choiceminis@gmail.com. You can support us by buying our merch, donating for coffee or beer for Adam and I, and probably the best way that you can actually support us is just tell a friend what we're doing here. Tell them you want to hang out and listen to some nerd prattle on about color theory. about his thoughts on intellectual property rights, about all sorts of things. I love you guys. I will be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock right here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Do something about white supremacy. ACAB, get vaccinated. Peace out.